Welcome to the November 2025 Mid-Career Lab monthly Q&A call. Great to see all of you here. The topic this month is going to be the foundation of my 3 elements framework, which is defining your superpower. And it really is the foundation because if we're having trouble building traction in our job search, I believe that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have not properly or adequately defined what we do and put the wrapper around that value proposition in a clear enough fashion so that other people will know how they can help us. So that's the superpower. That's the idea behind the superpower. So I'm going to share a handout with you that those of you who have either worked with me separately or who have found this in the library on the Mid-Career Lab site will be familiar with, but this is a swipe file of various LinkedIn profiles that follow this framework. And I think this will, if you're kind of struggling with this, I think it'll help give you some pointers on how you can empower your LinkedIn profile to really serve you and to really be this marketing hub, which I think is the potential value of that LinkedIn profile. So before we dive in, I wanted to kind of get some more input and engagement from the folks on the call. Zeke, good to see you. Josiah, another Cornell alum. Zeke was on our program last year. So some networking there. Hey, man. Anyway, so you guys are on the call today. Tell me more about what brings you here and what are some of the burning questions that you would like answered to really support you in your career development. And if you are looking for a new position, what are some of the frustrations that you are encountering? And to what extent do you feel or hope that focusing a little bit more on that value proposition, properly tricking out the LinkedIn profile could be of value?
Shall I just jump in, John? Or do you want
Please,
hands
be my
up?
guest.
Or
Be my guest.
okay. Well, I don't want to go on and on about my own personal circumstances, but I'm finding it tricky to land a job 4 months after I basically had to leave my previous one, as you know. And what I think people are looking at my LinkedIn profile, and I have had a couple of, let's say, pre-interview screening calls. One was with a law firm last month, and it was the job that just got me so excited. It was a 12-month fixed-term contract. It ticked all the boxes, a very reputable company. And I didn't get the job. I didn't get invited to interview, but I did manage to speak to the head of communications, who was the hiring manager. So I think the thing is, I do believe I've got thanks to your help and coaching, John, a good LinkedIn profile, a good idea of how to sell myself. But if I can keep rehearsing that and practicing that and really defining my superpower, it helps me in these introductory kind of conversations with people.
Yes. Yeah. I think in your case, explain to our listeners, our panelists, our guests, our group, what do you do? Exactly what do you do?
I work in communications. I specialize in external communications, and I business partner senior leaders to write thought leadership articles and to help build companies' reputations.
Right. And you are looking for, ideally,
I'm looking for a similar job, and that's a way that I can describe myself in a niche kind of way. Mm-hmm. But my actual, the roles that I'm looking for would be called either communications business partner or communications manager. But I don't think I have to say, oh, I'm looking for a communications manager role where I do I write press releases, I do this, I do that. I have to pick a few of the components of a typical communications manager role and hone in on what I'm particularly good at, I think, rather than listing everything that would come with that and saying I'm good or special at it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the question then for you is on you have your profile, you are
Mhm.
getting, and people do understand what you do. So really this is a question of finding the right opportunities. And it goes into the next phase of the process, which is seeking referrals. And for positions that you are finding, is there a way of finding an individual, a real person that you can network to in order to get into that company? But primarily, how did this law firm opportunity come up?
Well, it came up because my friend saw the ad on LinkedIn and she sent it to me. So again, that's using your network, if you like. Laura is a friend of mine, but she's an ex-colleague who could vouch for me. Um, and the lady that was interviewing, or the hiring manager, she said, if this job sounds interesting, please get in touch. So I messaged her and said, I'm really excited about this role. I'd love to speak to you about it. I've applied online on the company's website. And she called me a couple of days later. We had a great conversation. It felt like peer to peer. It was about 35 minutes long type thing. And then after that, I felt that I wouldn't like to say I was ghosted, but never heard anything further since till
Yep.
just a couple of days back when I got a message saying, unfortunately, you're unsuccessful, blah, blah, blah type thing. So
I would reconnect with that person that you had that 35-minute conversation with.
I tried to, John, but she hasn't accepted my LinkedIn request. And I sent her a message, and I was very careful about the tone because I didn't want to say, "Do you have any updates?" But I just said it was very nice to speak to you when was it, a couple of weeks back. I would love to keep the connection here, and
Mhm.
that's the most that I could do. She hasn't
Yeah,
accepted the
absolutely.
connection request yet, but
Yep.
I did try because
Good.
it genuinely felt like a good conversation. And I think the point is I've got to keep going. Maybe she will connect with me, maybe she won't, but I can't say I can't stop myself. I've got to try and then see what happens type thing and not be discouraged.
Yeah. I think you're doing everything right. And you've been down this road before. I think
Mm-hmm.
it really is also you're in this trough time-wise at the end of the year where a lot of hiring decisions get put off into the new year and people recognizing that there is a timeline to hiring and onboarding a new employee.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling is that after the end of October, pretty much it's a dead market across the board, and no one really wants to, unless there is a particular emergency or something that
Mm-hmm.
really needs to be handled, or you know, something's fallen out and something needs to kind of be set right, and they really need someone on deck. Then they're going to keep it till the end of the year. So for a new position, something that is not necessarily does not have any particular urgency to it, but there is a need and a real job behind that need, then it's really going to pick up for you after the first. And I would take this time to do your research and to really look around and explore on LinkedIn, both on the company side and the people side, and start having conversations. Extend your existing network. Go through the people that you have identified as potential allies, and just kind of do another sweep through that to make sure that you are kind of focused and straight about all of these angles that you want to hit once we get into the new year.
Okay, and I connected with a couple of ladies in the communication department at another insurance firm based in Edinburgh recently, and they just accepted the connection request. Do you think it's too forward or too bold to then set up a quick 15-minute call with them just to find out about the company culture, how they got into the role? Do you think that's okay, John, or is it seen as, I mean, someone can only say no. I just don't want to be too brash, as if it were.
No, I think it's reasonable. And I think, this
Mhm.
is the informational interview strategy that I think is enormously important and valuable. And yeah, you can't control whether people are willing and open to do this, but I think, you come across as a professional and
Mhm.
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't reach out, particularly because it is that time of the year where things are a little bit drifting and
Yeah.
yeah, you'll see.
Thank you,
I mean,
John.
I would approach it. I would not necessarily, depends on who they are, what your vibe is about it. I mean, go with your gut, but you don't necessarily want to kind of barge in and go, hey, can we have a meeting? I would warm it up a little bit, right? And look at their, if they have any kind of a posting history, or even if they don't, just to kind of look on their profile, look at what their background is, look for points in common, look for some way to kind of identify a point of connection uh, that sparks the conversation, and then that leads into your request for the informational interview. So it's not quite as cold as it might otherwise be. That might seem abrupt. There might be people who are completely fine with it and this is kind of part of their kind of philosophy of being a professional, is to be open and to be helpful. But there are a lot of other people who are going, what is this about? What do they want from me? Particularly because LinkedIn is such a sewer these days with
Oh God, yeah.
people, requesting, wanting to help you out on everything.
Mhm.
Well, sell services to you, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I hope that's
Thank you.
helpful. Yeah.
It is.
So
Thank you.
I want to encourage again everyone on the call, if you can, if you are presentable and feel presentable, to turn your cameras on so we can all feel like we are in the same room and not just kind of having you at the end of my broadcast, because that's not the idea here. The idea is for all of us to share, get to know one another a little bit, and really have a community experience. So welcome to those of you who have just joined. Leon, Marianne, good to see you. Nathan, Lorena. Nathan and Lorena, are you related at all? Two fogs on one call? Unusual? Hello? Okay. Oh,
Yeah, sorry there, John. Yeah, we are related.
oh, good. Good. How are you related?
Husband and wife.
Ah, wonderful. Wonderful. So what you've given me an opening. So what brings you to the call today?
To learn as much as we can about this time in life of where things are uncertain, and how to best prepare ourselves for what may be next and what it is that we're searching to be next.
Great. So what situations are you in right now then, and what are your top questions?
I'm not in the best place to talk right now, but
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll
appreciate the opportunity though, really do.
yeah, great. Well, I hope you get some enjoyment out of or some information out of the call. So I'll just kind of jump into talking a little bit about this idea of the superpower, and then I'm going to bring up my my document to share. But for me, the value of LinkedIn in this process, and despite the fact that we are in kind of LinkedIn blowout these days with the platform, I still think that the platform has tremendous value if you kind of push through this noise and this terrible kind of traffic jam that is the LinkedIn feed and all of the people who are trying to sell you stuff. It used to be back in the day when most people who were reaching out to you on LinkedIn were legitimate connections, and they had value, and you never knew where the connection might lead. So you would accept it. I would accept pretty much everyone who I ran into on LinkedIn. These days, I accept pretty much no one who comes across my feed, because for the most part, they are marketing something or other. But what that does is it sets up the strategy around being much more intentional and proactive with the way we use LinkedIn. So the fact remains that in an electronic age, a paper resume is an outdated document, and it is used primarily, in my experience, as a tracking document when you apply for a job. It does not get you in the door. No one, to my knowledge, certainly in the last 5-10 years, has ever just gotten an interview just by submitting a resume. That's something that used to happen, but now it's a lot more difficult, as we all know. So don't rely on the resume as your primary document. LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is your primary career document. And the resume is the experience section on LinkedIn. And that is one of 3 important components. But it is the third in this hierarchy on LinkedIn. It is not the first. The first is your headline. And your headline is not your job title. It is you've got 220 characters there to create a nugget that describes your value across the various areas of expertise and concentration that you have worked in, delivered in, and that you want to highlight as the defining nugget for your career going forward. And we'll look at some of those things on the examples that I'm going to bring up. One of the formulas that I think is very viable in many instances is the headline that is a identifier and a problem solver. So it runs like, it's very marketing generated. I help X stakeholder solve Y problem through Z method yielding A result. Really clear about what the value chain is that you provide. So it really is representing yourself almost like a product. And I think that's an analogy that many people recoil from. I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking of yourself as a product, because at the end of the day, you want to be the solution to someone's problem. That's what's going to get you hired today. The more specialized you are, the better. And that brings us into the real conundrum for a lot of people at this phase of our lives and careers, where we've done a lot, we can do a lot. That ends up being a confusing situation for us and for other people, because we feel like, well, I can do this job, but I can do that job, and I can do this one. You know, it's like being at a Las Vegas buffet and you think, oh, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I could just have pancakes and eggs and hash browns and, 3 different kinds of coffee and what. No, you want to be really careful to define yourself much more narrowly in your headline and in your profile, so that you can appeal to the best product market fit for you. In other words, people are looking for solutions. They have jobs that they want to fill. The roles and the deliverables that they're looking for are probably very, very specific. You're going to fit into some part of this value chain that they are delivering to their customers. So what you want to do is figure out, what is my most compelling value and how can I best describe it? So not only does it appeal to the person who's looking for that one thing, but how can I also incorporate all of the other stuff that I know how to do, all of the other value that I bring to the table, so that that deliverable, that one solution, that one identity becomes so enhanced and so compelling that they just have to at least interview me, if not hire me. Is that making sense? Leon, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said there, John, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I think a lot of what you said there might be it's harder to convey all of those qualities, all of the different intangibles and the different, what we bring to the table through a headline or even potentially through our profile. I feel like that those things need to come, we need to get to the interview
Yes.
to actually show those things.
Yes.
So the other thing that I wanted to say was my dilemma is really that where the things that are concrete about my background are really now in a saturated market. Like I was in product, and there are just so many product professionals out there right now that are looking. I mean, the tech space is just completely messed up right now anyways. But product is a role that, was a very sought after role. It was a very high paying role relative to other functions. And so it's just the market's flooded. And so what I find myself in a position okay, so I know that I want to maybe think about being open to other roles, right? What vertical can I sort of lean in on? And the problem for me is that I was in CRM largely throughout my career, so I touched in different verticals. I can't say I'm in the financial field, or I was in my last case I spent 4 years at Herbalife, so in wellness products, etc.
Right.
So I can't really lean on the vertical either. So for me, what it ends up being, and this is where I've been at, is I've compromised to like, I just need a job. And so I've opened myself up to meeting people in all kinds of areas, fields, people that own small businesses, everything. So where that obviously leaves me is completely like walking through a forest and kind of lost, because I don't have that direct aim that you're talking about. Because those things, I agree with you. Like if you have a very specific offering that's in demand by the marketplace, and there's few of the people offering that, then you're gonna get the attention. You're gonna get what you need, which is people coming for interviewing. So that's my dilemma.
Right. I think there are some wrinkles here. There's some nuances. There's some shades here. You have a number of verticals, right? That you have been in. How many? 3, 4?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe more because I implemented CRM for so many different kinds of customers.
Right. But in terms of the record that you are able to stand on and that you want to stand on, it's 2, 3, 4, right? Somewhere in there.
Okay.
Which is going to be the most noticeable. So I think it's perfectly great to be able to say that your CRM expertise extends across those verticals. That still qualifies as a narrowed definition in my book. Because what it does is it provides some easy context for people to say, well, okay, he's got some intersectionality, some good intersectionality there between these different verticals, which means he's accustomed to solving problems across these different mindsets. So that works in your favor. The other question, and I understand that you've got to do what you've got to do here to get the gig. I'm just trying to offer some perspective on this, that within those verticals, there must have been specific workflows, problems, approaches that you were good at implementing that moved the needle, where you could even say that these were within that role, these were products that you could, or tools that you could kind of pull out and use to solve whatever, this situation, that situation. So often what people will come to is they'll look at stages of a company's development. You talk about product, right? Using your product background in a way to solve the specific problems at the intersection of product and CRM. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but I wonder if there is that level of precision where you say, if you are in this particular situation and you are wrestling with this particular dilemma, this is what I solve. It's not something that you do in your headline necessarily, but it is a context, it's a perspective that you could infuse through your about section. You could highlight it in your experience section so that someone who is thinking along these lines would say, oh, I should talk to this guy. The other thing, and this kind of gets beyond the scope of our call today, but into the next call, is the question of network, community, and feedback. So have you been in this process as you've been going along over the past months? Have you been enlisting the support of your network, of your community, of the people? You know, I talk about this concept of the personal board of directors. Have you been working with your close colleagues on tracking your progress through this and basically using them as coaches to be able to say, okay, so here's the situation I had. I couldn't get any traction here. Here's what I'm trying. What's your feedback? What are your thoughts? Have you been incorporating that feedback into your process?
For me personally, I've been leaning on some close friends more than past colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think a byproduct of my career issues, and again, too long for this call, is that I think because I didn't really have the amount of traction that that you'd want in a career in a particular environment, you don't, the close connections don't come with you. Like I mean, I have a couple that I talk to occasionally, for reference purposes. I just want to stay in touch with them for those purposes.
Yeah.
But I some good takeaways from what you just mentioned. I mean, I think like thinking about like where in my experience I solved specific problems. That's one of the things I took away from this. So I appreciate that, and I'd like to lean on. I'd like to have my own network of coaches, but it's been tough to kind of like have that set up. So
yeah, I mean, it can be challenging to kind of go back over the jobs you've had, the people you've met in these jobs, and to maintain or to resurrect relationships that are, out of date.
mm-hmm.
At the same time, I think it is important
Mm-hmm.
for you to kind of look through, if you haven't done this in a while, look through your contacts and see where these people are today, because you may not have followed where they've been, where they've gone since you were last in touch. And you may find a handful of people that might be valuable and who might be open to reconnecting with you. And not that you're asking them for a job,
Right.
but that you're building community around this crazy marketplace that we're all in. And believe me, if you're feeling it, they're feeling it. If they're in a job, they are probably thanking and praying every day that they can stay in their job. So I don't think anyone has any illusion these days about their job security in this world. So if they're halfway smart, they're going to see the value in bonding with and maintaining those bonds with like-minded fellow travelers along that same professional arc. And you might be surprised at who responds to you. There's some studies on the value of weak ties. Now we assume that people that we know really well, the people who are closest to us, are going to be in our corner and the most helpful. And as some of you know, I've been fired a lot over the course of my career. And every time I was in a career transition like that, it was always surprising who showed up and who didn't. The people that I expected were my closest friends who I hung out with and we did deals together and whatever. It's like all of a sudden, I'm not working for this company anymore and they're not available. They're not around. They're not calling me back. Oh yeah, I was really busy, whatever. And then people that I didn't know particularly well would come out of the woodwork and go, hey, I hear you left so-and-so. What's going on? Have you talked to this person? Have you talked to that person? And I come out of a very network intensive industry in entertainment. So it's, jobs in those days weren't posted. You never saw a job posted. It was all through referrals. And it was always surprising who would step out. And my best story about this is that the guy who helped me get my DreamWorks job, which was my last big entertainment job, and it was a phenomenal experience, was the worst possible candidate in my mind for a reliable ally at a time when I really needed it. My startup had tanked and I was kind of on fumes. And this guy stepped up. It was amazing. It was really weird. This was a guy who was one of the most unreliable people I knew. Bright, personable, charismatic, but a total flake. He came through. So you just never know how it's going to work out. But again, you really want to lean into your relationships now, because those relationships are what's going to help you maintain this focus. Because I sense that you are starting to kind of spiral a little bit into, I just need a job, in any way, shape, or form. This can diffuse the effort and kind of confuse your direction and your focus. So I really want to encourage you to get back into and lean into those really well-defined strengths that you have demonstrated and that you've worked in. The jobs are out there for specialists, right? It's a numbers game. You just have to, get in people's faces and get referrals, because it's scary dangerous to be hiring in this environment. You just don't know who you're going to get. And you want to rely on some reasonably intelligent and smart person to introduce you to the right candidate. Be that candidate.
I appreciate the feedback. I've done some of the networking, but I need to do a lot more of it.
Yeah.
So thanks.
And it is a process, and it's not a quick fix, but nothing is a quick fix in this economy for job seekers. So I want to see if there are one or two other people before I kind of get into my little demo here. People who've got some key questions for me or situations that they'd like to process through. Ronnie.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, hi, how are you? Yes, thank you for hosting the event and for the invite. So I've got two thoughts in my head. Let me share the first thought. I'm kind of a decent way into my career, have an advanced degree in HR. I've done a lot of consulting work, more than I should. I lost my last permanent job in 2009 with a Big Four accounting firm, and I have been hopscotching my way through one consulting engagement after another for the last 15 years. And I want off this merry-go-round. I want to be in a full-time permanent position. I'll tell you what I tell everybody. I worked at Dow Jones. For about 11 months, I worked at Blue Origin, space aviation company, for about 6 months. And I want a place where I can have a cycle time measured in years, not months. I want to be able to say, hey, I was at Blue Origin, I was there 6 years. I was at Dow Jones 11 years. And being able to have that conversation is it's a horse of a different complexion. It's the difference between a thoroughbred stud and a mule with two broken legs. So there's that piece of it. I want to get out of consulting and be someplace permanent. And there's also something I've kind of sort of realized as my comings and goings. I work for quite a few different industries, financial services, pharma, even federal government. I've kind of sort of realized that, employers, they try and sell themselves to you. They kind of market themselves as being a great place to work. And you work for a manager and you want to put your best foot forward. But what I found is that I work for people that are really technically bright. But when it comes to the art and science of being a people manager, they don't have a clue. They really don't. And you can't say that to somebody because it'll come out the wrong way. But what I found is that I've been doing a lot of that boy work. That boy coming early, that boy stay late, that boy, celebrate somebody else's promotion. And I've kind of never had a manager that realized that you don't get return on investment from an employee through man hours and throughput. That's the worst way to get return on investment. The way you get return on investment from a direct report is by saying, listen, Ronnie, I want you to sit down. I want you and I to develop a CDP, a career development plan, such that you earn your way by the sweat of your brow to at least 2 or 3 promotions while you work for me. But I want you to work for it. That's really how you get 7-10x return on investment out of having a direct report. But I've never, ever experienced that anywhere. And I don't know if that's like a rare unicorn that doesn't exist. So just thought I'd share, put that out there. And, I'm looking for a full-time permanent job in HR, either as an HR manager, recruiting manager, or in compensation.
Bunch of things come up for me about this, and thank you for sharing that in such detail. Really appreciate it. You're swimming upstream. Let me just tell you that. You have experience over the last 10, 15 years that people in full-time positions, long-term full-time positions, really, really need and don't know they need. The world, as you know, is getting more freelance, more contract, more consultative. And while I certainly appreciate your quest to join a company in a full-time position and be able to kind of build on that, build the relationships, build the track record, really contribute to that company's bottom line, and in HR to contribute to the culture, it's going to be a crapshoot. However, I think one of the limiting beliefs that I think you are operating under is that the full-time job is kind of the panacea. Being the consultant is, what was your analogy about the mule with 2 broken legs or something like that? I think of it completely around a different way around. As a consultant, you have seen things from different perspectives. You have worked with a range of different people across multiple problems, solving those problems. You, particularly from an HR perspective, you have a perspective on company culture that few people in HR actually have. And my HR bias is that HR tends to be very, very insular in their mindset. And there is an aspiration in HR to be welcoming and wonderful and supportive and generative for employees. In fact, HR, I believe, is hamstrung from the get-go by management to basically keep everybody in line. So the people in HR are phenomenal and idealistic, but they have a hard road to hoe. So that's my little editorial on that. Where you, I think, have a tremendous advantage, and I would surmise, I've looked at your profile, that you have an opportunity to leverage your consulting background by focusing on a proprietary, even, you might want to think about this, proprietary protocol methodology framework for how to do that work. You're talking about having a manager who is trained enough and visionary enough to understand the value of a career development plan. That's one takeaway that you bring to the table from all your years of seeing it done all these different ways and having a ton of stories about how it was done right, how it was done wrong. And I would bet that you could captivate a room around what you've seen and earn the authority to prescribe viable, effective, successful strategies in HR to achieve what you as an employee or a consultant would have loved to have seen, but were disappointed and didn't see it, didn't experience it. So I think there's a whole up-leveling here for you that focuses on the value of what you do and know as an HR consultant. And the value that you represent there will hopefully, very conceivably, get noticed by a head of people somewhere who goes, whoa, we need this perspective in our company full-time. But you have to step up to defining yourself at that level. And instead of looking at your consulting experience as this kind of wandering in the wilderness, going from gig to gig, kind of scraping it together, you have to look at that as a systematic development of a portfolio of value and skills that you can persuasively characterize as providing value to that HR organization. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so, yes.
So this gets back to the value of the profile to me and the ability to really define that proposition, that value proposition. And then you've got something to sell. Because if you're selling, I'm a mule with 2 broken legs, well, then you're going to be laying by the roadside waiting for someone with a stretcher. But if you define yourself as this HR wizard with all of these experiences and tricks and tools that have been developed through years of focused work with top brand clients, then who wouldn't want to get you into a meeting so that they could learn a little bit more about what makes you tick and think about, how can I apply all of this richness to what we need? And I think that could go a long way towards reshaping the experience that you're having in the job market and leading to that full-time position. But I wouldn't lead with the idea that you want a full-time position. I would lead with, here's the value that I provide, and here is the framework that I use in the work that I do, and here's what it is derived from, and here's what the results of it are. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. Perspective, yes.
Looking at the chat here, and Sally's asking a good question. Do you write any articles and post them on LinkedIn about what you've seen in your consulting work without naming the companies?
I have not. That's a tactic I should employ. Yes.
Great idea, because then this goes to my third element, which is thought leadership, right? If you are providing this consistent wisdom born from your years of experience, that's
Right.
pretty compelling. And it's you're kind of leaving a trail of breadcrumbs behind you, right? That people can refer to and go, wow, look at all this experience here.
Right.
Anyway, let's see. We have about 10 minutes to go. I want to just quickly share this sheet with you guys. And again, it is available in the Mid-Career Lab. Where is this now? Coming up.
Not yet.
Okay, stop that. I should not be having bandwidth issues, but I've been having a lot of trouble sharing on Zoom lately, so we may not be able to do this today. Anyway, what I would encourage you to do as a, yeah, this is not going to work, as a secondary solution is to go into the Mid-Career Lab. If you are not yet a member, it's free. Go to midcareerlab.com and click on the link to join. And in the library, you will find a LinkedIn swipe file document, which is a collection of about a dozen plus LinkedIn profiles that follow this, at this point, proven formula around creating your profile. Again, I talked a little bit about this at the top of the call, the idea of the 220 characters of your headline being this, either I solved this problem for this person this way, with this result, or to not talk about job title, but talk about your overall role. So in Ronnie's case, that you would be a senior HR leader, and then you would talk about the specific roles or deliverables or skill sets, specializing in this aspect of culture, creating development plans for people, whatever that is that really drives the work that you do. Create a headline along those lines. The next thing that I really encourage people to do is to look at their about section in a very different way. And that the about section, instead of being this kind of, dry biography or a recap of your LinkedIn experience section or your CV, is instead a mission statement. And the mission statement is about who you are, why you do what you do, and where you want to take it in your career. So you are setting up a conversation with a potential ally around what's important about you. And people hire people. They do not hire skill sets. They think they hire skill sets. They think they hire people who check off the boxes on the job descriptions. That's a really terrible way to hire. And those of you who have been in hiring positions know this, that you've got someone who's got all the boxes checked on the job description, but you want to hire this other person because they're going to be a better fit. You trust that they're going to show up with energy, with insight, and what they don't know, they can learn. This is particularly true for this population, for people who have experience, because you bring all of that and the insight to the table. You're not going to see that on a resume. You're going to talk about it on a resume, but you're not going to really see it. Where you can really express it is in the about section. And if you can connect with someone based on your who and your why, then you're actually starting to build a relationship. and you're finding people who are going to resonate with your who and your why and your where. And those commonalities are going to form the foundation of the relationship that's going to get you hired, whether by them, if they are an employer looking to hire someone and you kind of come across their radar, or with your ally network and your community. So it's really important, and it's not just about representing yourself to the world. It's about you kind of coming to grips with who you really are and what is it that you really want to do, and why is it that you do what you're doing? What motivates you to show up? So if you're feeling like, I've kind of lost my mojo in the work that I do, how do I get this back? Working this exercise and really going deep on your why. And really, here's a question that I ask everybody the first session that we work together as coach and client is, when did you have the most fun in your career? At what point, and what job did you have the most fun? Because that's when it was all operating on all cylinders, right? You were appreciated, you appreciated them, they loved the work, you loved doing the work, you got up every morning inspired, feeling safe, feeling appreciated, and you did good stuff. Well, that's what you want to recapture. Very often that gets lost from the early stages of the career when you're in your first. I talk to people all the time. I have a new client the other day talking about one of her first jobs was when she had the most fun. And it was a good group of people. She had a great boss. She was learning all sorts of stuff. She was contributing, a lot of imagination going on. And then she kind of got into a track. And it really wasn't the right track for her. And she's been kind of compromising ever since. We've got to get back to that initial enthusiasm, that connection to purpose, to self, to what you can contribute. So that's where the about section really can help you build traction, gives you a sense of certainty about what it is that you're contributing. And if you're unclear about where you're connecting with people, you have to start there. I always believe that the career is an inside-out process. It's not about fitting yourself into the other people's criteria of what they want. It's about you drawing them to who you are and what's important and fantastic about you, so that you can make that connection. They can go, whoa, you're just what I was looking for. So then the experience section becomes the list, right? That's the history. But if the headline doesn't really define the area and the headline doesn't really define the person, then they're not going to be interested in the experience section. It's just another listing of jobs. And, your listing of jobs can be just kind of the same as everyone else's listing of jobs. And, back to Leon's concern, justifiable concern, a lot of product people out there. And how do you differentiate? Well, a lot of people can do what you do, but they're not all going to do it the way you do it. And that's why that about section becomes a very, very important differentiator, because it gives people an understanding of, so they bring this insight to this work. That's really kind of much more compatible with the way we roll here. That's the kind of person we want doing this work. So these are some of the nuances that you want to play with as you're defining your value proposition, as you're kind of configuring this idea of the superpower, bringing your whole self into the mix to make this thing happen. So we're kind of at time. I wanted to just ask if there are any other questions or comments about this. And then what I'm going to do is, because it seems like an active chat today, I'm going to go through that chat. I'm going to pull that chat in. It will be available in the Mid-Career Lab posting of the call. I don't know if I can put this all on the YouTube posting, but I want to make sure to distill the value from the chat. And there will be an AI recap along with the listing, the posting. So you'll have that to rely on. And then, of course, connect with me directly with any further questions. Happy to follow up with any of you and all of you. Any final thoughts or questions?
No, simply thank you, John. That was a really good call. Thank you. And
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Bob
the
Hicks.
conversation and the chat too.
Great to see Bob Hicks showing up. This is my man. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. For those of you in the US, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.